Hey guys, this is Lawrence of the Ketones and Coffee Podcast. Make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any of this great content. I'm so excited for this. We have a very special guest on the podcast today. She is a board-certified internal and obesity medicine physician with a master's in human nutrition, who is also an outstanding ambassador of health. Her exceptional expertise in utilizing food as medicine has transformed the lives of many patients, helping them heal from ailments, optimize weight, and obtain food freedom. She's also the owner of Food First MD, a private medical nutrition center based in Connecticut. Her mission is to empower patients to regain control of their health with the most underutilized medicine, food. Her dedication and commitment to serving her patients has earned her widespread recognition in the field, and her work is a testament to the life-changing benefits of food as medicine. I'm so excited for this. I'm here with Dr. Christine Najjar. Dr. Christine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Doc, what an honor to have you on the show. I want to start the interview with a quote, and you're going to appreciate this. Hippocrates once said, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." This age-old adage still holds true today, as you and your patients can attest to today. How are you? What's going on today, and how are you?
I'm doing great. Saw some patients this morning, finishing up some chart notes, and here I am talking to you.
Awesome. I love it. As I read upon your story here, your practice has had a profound impact on so many people's lives, and you've thought that the right food can be medicine for our bodies. And unfortunately, we live in a world filled with processed foods, refined grains, and refined sugars that I call fake food. And these foods, it just wreak havoc on our bodies, and they act like drugs because they are highly addictive, and it's difficult to give up. And this struggle has led to an epidemic of chronic disease, obesity, and in some cases, mental illness. Dr. Christine Najjar, your journey towards your current practice began as a personal health journey, and your clinic's dedication to incorporating food as medicine has proven to be life-changing for so many. And as someone who wishes they had a doctor who was just as committed to discussing health and wellness, I believe our listeners, would love to hear more about the experiences that have shaped your approach. Could you share with us the pivotal moments in your life that led you to nutrition and your current practice?
Sure. Well, it's funny. I, like so many Americans, so many people, really struggled with weight my entire life. And unlike so many Americans, I went overseas at least once a year to my family, to visit my family in Lebanon. And without being on a diet, for no reason, my waistline would shrink every summer. I would think it was because we would line dry our clothes and be like, oh, my pants are just like not shrinking every time they go in the dryer. Silly things like that. But my waistline would always expand when I when I came back to the States. And I really tried to lose weight growing up. I remember being on Weight Watchers in middle school. And I was a 3-sport athlete. I was like always very, very active. I learned how to count calories. I learned how to count points and track things. Paid for gym memberships between seasons. And there was this one doctor's appointment that I went to for the pediatrician, and I was so distraught by it because this man, out the door turns around and is just like, well, you're technically overweight, or I don't even remember what he said, but he made me feel like complete crap, never even asked if I was doing anything. Meanwhile, I am a child, a young teenage woman, trying to, with all these self-doubts and low confidence and low esteem. And he doesn't even touch on any of like, you know, how self-conscious I was in my own body, let alone the fact that I had been desperately trying to figure it out. And he's just like, you need to eat less and move more. And I was like, what the heck? It's just like not, you know, like how many times can I do this? But I kept doing it. Like I literally kept doing that because I went to medical school and that is what we were taught to do. I went like, you know, during my nutrition, you know, masters, we would get lectures by active nutritionists, and this is just what they preach. This is what is peddled, even if the science is blatantly like speaking otherwise, you know. So another big like forefront that, you know, really confused me was when we were looking at during my master's program, really evaluating nutritional literature and scrutinizing saturated fats. You know, there was no literature that showed saturated fats were harmful. And yet here I was, a medical student, every time somebody came into the hospital with a stroke or a heart attack, it was like an automatic low fat diet. And I was like, well, why are we doing that if it's not actually harmful? And meanwhile, I was kind of reading about this whole keto thing. And actually my brother had gone on the keto diet and he's like this ultimate crazy biohacker. And he kept trying to like tell me about it. And in my program, we read a couple studies about ketogenic diets and they actually were like really impressive. It was like, oh, this diet like helped all of these things. And in my head, I was like, okay, well, why aren't we talking about this more? So it was a little confusing, but the dots were still not all there. And so, you know, at the same time, I had gone plant-based, I had gone vegan, and I saw my health decline as a result of that. My fingernails were falling apart. And so I would, you know, I added back eggs and fish. But still, you know, the whole meat story was a whole other thing that I hadn't even begun to unpack yet until, you know, and so my health was really starting to decline because I was trying to do low calorie diets even more. I was pushing it even more. At this point, I like knew all the tricks. And by the time I made it to residency, I could go on like a 500 calorie diet and like cycle on and off that based on rotations and how much work I was doing. And I would like blow up and shrink. And I started developing, you know, low blood sugar symptoms. I started developing eczema, like super irritability, not being able to focus, not being able to concentrate. Like my anxiety was through the roof. I thought I needed medications for anxiety, and you know, it was really going on my first vacation as a resident. I took a like Euro trip with a friend and I listened to The Big Fat Surprise, and I just remember being so damn angry, and I was like, oh, maybe this is what I'm missing. Because again, my brother had gone on a ketogenic diet and he was thriving. And so I was kind of low carb because I was low calorie, but I had never thought to like actively eat fat. I was like, maybe, you know, and so I realized at the end of it, I just had like a fat phobia. And I had a really bad fat phobia, and I came back and I really like embraced it and thought I was never going to sleep again after I like felt what ketones were like. And obviously that calms down and stuff. But that was really, you know, it was this like a whole string of me trying to figure out how to fix myself, me seeing all of these incongruencies with the education and experience I got working in hospitals, working in clinical settings, and then to have something so profound within myself change, and then to, you know, get resistance and pushback still from people in the medical community, even after like I have like physically, mentally, completely done a transformation. It's still like, oh, this whole keto thing, you know, that resident who's about that crazy keto diet. But then, you know, to finish residency, where they say, you know, we're still taught type 2 diabetes is chronic, progressive, irreversible. And my first year out of residency, like I'm taking people off of insulin. They don't train you how to take people off of insulin. Like, you know, I'm like, am I really doing this? Like, am I licensed to do this? And the doctor I was working with was like, yes, you are licensed to do this. And this is how you do it safely. And I'm so thankful for all of the support really from the other doctors who have fledged through, because they were right there to say, yeah, this is how you do it. This is how you do it safely. there was always somebody that I could ask in the like low carb community. And so I feel like that was, you know, you say grassroots movement, like this is super grassroots, but the roots are deep. And, you know, I tell people all the time when I give lectures about it, you know, we are standing on the shoulders of giants. Like metabolic medicine isn't new. This is old news, right? This was old news before I was born, old news. And yet I suffered for the first like 20 plus 25, 27, 28 years of my life. Because I, you know, despite $500,000 of education, write a book by a journalist is what connected the dots for me. So, you know, it's really kind of, it can be really sad when you think about it, because now I'm left looking at the system, you know. You go see your doctor after you watch the commercial, you know, the commercial followed by the drug to treat, you know, the thing that food is causing, and I could just keep going, but yeah, I think that was, I touched on a couple of big things, but it was the journey was deep, you know, the journey's still ongoing.
We'll break this down in a little while here, but as I listened to your story, you had a lot of questions, because you're also going through, you're also dealing with some of, you know, your own health issues while you're going through your med school, and you know, but you know, no matter how long it takes, I can hear it from your voice and how you articulate yourself. This is what you want to do. This is a mission for you, and it takes one person. And you've gone through a lot of trials and errors through, you know, your own set of issues in nutrition, but it never stopped you from questioning. And you're very curious, and you're questioning what you're learning and your experience and others' experiences, which is what I've seen from other people as well, when, you know, other doctors, you know, make that switch to a more of, you know, fixing our metabolism. You briefly touched upon your visit to your doctor. Many of us heard this infamous advice from physicians, you know, eat less and exercise more, but let's be real. My listeners know how I feel about this. It's a bunch of crap. These few words can create a storm of self-doubt. You talk about self-doubt, self-esteem, and, you know, fixations, and even mental health issues sometimes. And here's why, right? If you can't lose weight just by following the advice of eating less and exercise more, there's a lot of blame that comes with that, right? You might start to dislike yourself, you know, comparing yourself to others, and think that it's, you know, it's just your fault. You can't lose weight, you can't be disciplined, but in your case, you called BS early on, right? I think one of the pivotal moments in your life was during that doctor's appointment, when you had realized that he couldn't help you anymore. And can you take us through that moment and explain what it meant for you, and then your career, and how do you look at that?
Yeah, you know, I was like, you know, so disappointed. You grow up and you kind of put doctors on a pillar, and you're like, oh man, you know, they know everything. They went through all the school. They became a doctor because they really want to help me. And like, he just couldn't help me. And I always was like, okay, well, I really wanted to help people. I felt like I had a very, you know, blessed and grateful upbringing, and I always just wanted to live my life to service others. And so I went to medical school. I was like, I can do this. And medical school taught me nothing about nutrition, right? You know, there was the 2-week program, and it really focused a lot on, you know, starvation syndrome, pregnancy and nutrition. You know, like, it wasn't like, let's treat obesity and diabetes. And there was no talk about metabolic, you know, I didn't even know that there should be talk about metabolic medicine, but I was just like, there was no nutrition here. And I was still, you know, determined to be a different type of doctor is really what it was, because of how much I disdained doctors growing up for how much I just felt like they couldn't help me. And so that's why I pursued a master's in nutrition during clinical rotations. And since then, like, even during rotations, everything was really, the whole education, I really tried to point towards, you know, it was all a thing to figure out myself, but if I couldn't figure out myself, how am I going to figure out and help anybody else? Yeah. So you're pursuing this knowledge. I have all these motives for pursuing this knowledge. But I was working with the bariatric surgeons. I was working with obesity medicine specialists. I was serving as like nutritional counselors, even as a medical student. I did rotations as a resident in every single clinical setting that had to do with weight and lifestyle, even like American College of Lifestyle Medicine in the plant-based approach. I did rotations with that. I did rotations at very low calorie clinics. I did rotations still with the bariatric surgeons and metabolic medicine, or the standard obesity medicine physicians who prescribe drugs. All of these, and you know, you see a lot. And I decided after residency, I ultimately really needed to start my own practice and help people in this like unique way, because, you know, I really tried working as a primary care doctor, and big medicine, big corporate really doesn't want you to take time with patients. They want you to see high volume. And so that's like, you know, it's really been about me trying to find a way to help people. And I guess my gut always told me that it was the food, just because of early childhood experiences. I grew up also in the kitchen cooking with my family, my grandmother, my mom. Lebanese people love to cook. We love to eat. We love to host. And so I grew up loving to do those things. And, you know, food tastes better when you're low carb and keto. I truly believe that. I eat much yummier foods now than I did back in the day. But yeah, there was a lot of juice there, a lot of like, you know, I was like, I'm going to do this the right way. Like, this is my mission in life. Like, let's get it. You know, what else? What else am I doing here? There was no doubt. You know, I remember people, when I told people, I was like, oh yeah, I want like a storefront rent one day in my office, which I don't have yet. These are 5-year goals. And people are like, you can't do that. You can't do, there's so many people who are like, you can't do exactly what I'm doing today. It happened. I was like, watch me. Watch me. What do you mean? Just watch me.
Plus your oath, right? You vowed to follow that oath, where it talks about, you know, no matter what, you will be to help your patients with their health, right? In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yeah.
And you didn't work for a medical establishment. Did you go straight to a private practice?
No, I did. I worked for a mom and pop kind of weight loss clinic right out of residency. And then I worked as a regular primary care doctor in like a bigger corporate medical setting. And then I was like, all right, let's do this.
and it wouldn't give you the flexibility they have now, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now, so what I really love is that I can take my time with my patients. I'm about empowerment. My mission is to empower, and there's nothing more empowering than education. And so there's so much to unlearn and rethink. And I think a lot, you know, my own struggle, I had to get over the fat phobia. I had to get over this fear that I had of eating these foods that I was convinced were the reason behind my misery, because every single place, everywhere growing up, that's what they told you. It's the fat, you know, low calorie, like, you know, I grew up in the 90s. That was the 90s craze. And undoing all of that, and then undoing all of my fears around like meats and animal products that were, you know, all just a lot of them put in my head. And, you know, I think that humans are highly adaptable and you can swing either way. But when I was doing things for the wrong reasons and experimenting with with a vegan lifestyle and a vegetarian lifestyle, I was doing it for the wrong reasons. And, you know, there was just I had gotten so much misinformation growing up, and I struggled, and there's no need for it. Like, I want to help people not struggle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of people out there that struggle needlessly, right? There's a lot of things that are tied to our lifestyle that is, you know,
all the inputs. Avoidable. That's what I tell people. Like, you know, it's not just the nutrition inputs. There are a lot of negative inputs that are coming our way from our phones and our TVs and the food we eat and the relationships we have. And, but when you talk about the human condition and being resilient, the best way to get resilience for external factors is to make sure that what you're putting in your body is optimal and prime, so your inside is as resilient as possible.
There's nobody more qualified to talk about resilience than you are. Like, looking at your story, that dedication that you had to just learn more about nutrition while going to med school, interchangeably, is incredible. And I'm sorry for cutting you off, but go ahead. Just want to point that out.
No, I don't think I was. That's yeah.
So I want to go back to you did share that when you were beginning residency, you experienced weight gain, health issues, and including brain fog. Difficulty focusing.
Yeah.
I noticed that when you were, when you noticed that when you're unable to eat, you became irritable and anxious. You also expressed doubts. You said your ability to help others because you were struggling to help yourself. Something shifted, and you began. You said reading books about. You did say Gary Taubes, right? Nicole Takos.
Yeah.
The Big Fat Surprise. I actually have this book right now here. And you actively seek knowledge and putting it into action. This realization appears to have had a significant impact on your beliefs and career aspirations. Can you elaborate on what that realization is? And you said something clicked, and how it influenced your path going forward.
Yeah. So for people the symptoms that I was experiencing by the start of residency were clear-cut symptoms of insulin resistance, meaning I was struggling with elevated levels of a hormone called insulin that most people only think of in regards to diabetes, but 88% of the American population has an issue with this hormone that is not routinely checked for. And so I was struggling with those symptoms. And, I was able to figure that out after reading these books and changing the nutrition. So changing my nutrition with the metabolic approach, bringing down your carbs can bring down your insulin, amongst other things that are also happening, but basically making ketones, right? I was in a place where my metabolism was not making ketones, right? I remember when I got my keto mojo, it took me months to figure it out because I had fat phobia, because I didn't understand that where my body was at, I needed to actively actually eat fat. Because I would never in a million years think that was going to be my solution. But that's what I needed at the time. I needed to actively eat more fat. And when I finally did it, and I finally, when your brain chemistry flips in the way that it flips when you start having ketones, that was the click. You can't unexperience that. And there's nothing that I can, the words to, it's as powerful as a drug, right? It stops seizures in its tracks. It's enough to stop a seizure in its track. And I tell people, it's like taking an Adderall and a Xanax at the same time. I had never I didn't know I had an issue with my memory until all of a sudden I could do an intake in the ER and not have to write anything down. It was magical. I could remember what they said. I could go tell a supervisor about it. I could go tell another intern or resident about it. I could go see and speak to another patient and then go and chart it without having to worry about if that information was going to leave my head. It was amazing. The ability to focus, I was like, man, I think, how did I get through medical school not knowing this? But actually, when I think about how I lived my life while I was studying, I probably did have ketones in my body at that time. But nonetheless, the anxiety, that was the most profound thing that changed, right? For the first time in my life, I could observe my emotions and I could get a wave of anxiety and let it pass. And that resilience, that was really the trigger that made me, aside from the fact that I instantly lost weight and it stayed off, all of these things, for somebody who was studying for 10 freaking years, trying to figure out how to do exactly what happened, right? Like, this was a crazy, relentless hunt, and I figured it out, and it clicked, and it was these damn ketones that I just didn't understand. And now I understand it, and it's, you know, it's not an easy thing to explain to people because calories in, calories out is so easy to understand, and it makes sense, and it's comfortable because you get it, but like your metabolism and how you make ketones and the functioning of your body fat is really what it's about. And so that's really where my education with patients starts, is I bring it to the body fat. People, you know, I ask everybody, what is body fat? First encounter, what is it? You know, the stuff you want to get rid of. It's yucky, it's gross, it's disgusting. That's what everybody says. And I'm just like, well, did you know it's an organ? It's like, it's an organ just as important as your heart, your brain, your liver, your lungs. It's totally supposed to be there. And let's talk about what it is, how it functions, and why it's so critical for your metabolism. And we go from there. But yeah, that's, you know, that was the click. It was magical. It was metabolic magic. And then, you know, but yeah.
It is magical, and to anyone, you know, listening here today that has experienced that, you know what Dr. Christine means. Like, when you experience that, like you said, you can't unexperience it. Right? It's there, and you know the great thing about it is you can make it. You know, we can make it as a tool, right? And but for us, you know, for me, it's not having those foods anymore are worth it, because for me, like I said, you know, my depression and anxiety dissipated after, and I get so much energy. And for me, from I can't have those foods, shift my mindset to I don't want those foods anymore. And it took some time, right? It didn't, you know, take that, you know, because it's not an easy change. It's a simple change, right? But it's not easy, right?
It's culturally awkward and socially constraining. Culturally it can be very uncomfortable, but then you just remember why you did it. And then like you go off plan and you're like, man, I really feel like crap. But what's so interesting is like not everybody has that amazing magical flip moment that I had and you seem to have. So my husband, who like came with a 6-pack, when I first met him, he was having things like Cheerios for breakfast and like all this stuff. And I was just like, all right, well, let's see what happens. And he eventually cleaned those things out. And, you know, at one point was like, you know, I really like you. I really want to try this lifestyle, like, you know, how you do it. And it wasn't as profound of a flip for him, but he was like, I'm more focused. Like I can actually focus a lot better during the day. And his acne got better. And what was interesting and what happens to people who aren't, I guess, as metabolically broken as I was, is he was able to make ketones like within 24 hours of reducing his carbs. Whereas me, it took me like months and weeks, and I needed to add extra fat to make ketones, and he didn't really need that. So anyways, just pointing out that everybody's different. So if you're listening and you're like disappointed, it's not as magical, but it definitely can be. It can be a journey. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a journey. And again, you know, that's why we need somebody to stay accountable to, right? You know, as a coach, you know, Dr. Christine's practice here. And, you know, you touch upon, you know, hormones, right? You know, you talked about how important it is essential to regulating our, you know, some of the body function, and what we can eat can trigger these release of hormones that can impact our weight, our overall health. That's why your clinic follows, you know, a food-first approach, recognizing the power of food in promoting optimal health. But unfortunately, some doctors may simply advise their patients to, you know, lose weight without offering guidance on how to do so sustainably, right? For many people outside of the keto community, me included, I thought healthy eating meant, you know, a bland chicken breast and steamed broccoli, right?
Yeah.
As you can imagine, it's unappealing and unsustainable long term. As a former serial yo-yo dieter myself, I understand how traumatizing, you know, eating the same food every day, right? And many of, you know, my guests on the show have shared similar experiences before they went on a ketogenic diet. So how do you establish a sustainable lifestyle with, you know, food as a medicine for your patients?
Well, that's what I try to help them do. It's about getting them in that right mindset, you know, dealing with those feelings of deprivation, dealing with the emotions that drive people to eat, having systems in place for when you have cravings, and then, you know, strategies in place for this, like the social discomfort and the cultural, like, you know, when it, you know, what are you going to do when you show up to a party and the food's there and you want it? What are you going to do, like during the holidays, or when you know, somebody wants you to eat junk food with them because it makes them feel better. You know, everybody has different circumstances, situations, and it's about putting together really community support. You know, that's really such an important aspect to anything. The community support, the education, knowing what to say, knowing what to do. But this is where, you know, taking time with patients comes in. This is where, you know, I'm working on putting together an accountability plan. I'm hoping to expand my team to consist of dietitians and health coaches. And, you know, I'm going to be rolling out ketone monitoring. That's a great way to stay accountable, you know? So accountability looks different for everybody, and it's about really just the person in front of me, but it's helping people understand, you know, what the food is doing for them, because, you know, I actually never tell people that I'm putting them on a keto diet. I don't use that word because people get really scared by it. And it really, you know, it's not the 80% fat and 15% protein and 5% carbs. I don't actually like give people calories to track, because I think that that's, you know, a disease that us, you know, the medical institute has put on everybody. Oh, let's track calories. Really, we should be tracking nutrients, because that's what you're eating. If you're going to track anything, but, you know, some people, it's as simple as just re-educating them about what they can and cannot eat, or what they should and shouldn't eat. And, you know, we're coming from a place where we've been told, you know, eat carbs every couple hours because it boosts your metabolism and keeps your energy up. And I just, you know, scratch my head because like the opposite is true. But, you know, and so how do you help them with accountability? It's catering it to what exactly they need. What, you know, it's getting a bigger system in place, because it's hard. Yeah,
we need personalized guidance in terms when it comes to, you know, lifestyle changes, because it is you know, it ties the lifestyle is tied in with our culture. It ties in with, you know, how our family around us, or, you know, whoever you live with. It's just
absolutely
a lot of triggers, a lot of cues, right? And, you know, accountability is one of the best things to do. And you talked about community aspect of it. That's one thing that can help somebody to make this a much sustainable lifestyle. But it's not so bad. Like, we are eating the foods that we want to eat, right? You talked about I saw your Instagram, and it's all delicious food. Like, can you plug in your Instagram for the listeners here? Follow her.
Doctor's Dish. Doctor's Dish. That was the food blog I started in 2017, which is when I like discovered keto, to just be like, well, this is what I'm eating, and look at how much weight I'm losing. Or look how much better I feel. Like, here I am, a doctor eating these foods. And so I'm actually hoping to make Doctor's Dish more of a thing. I want that to really be my educational platform, and I'm actually talking to somebody to help me get, like, you know, videos made of me cooking. And because like I said, I grew up cooking, and so I love, I think that would be a really cool way to reach out to patients, is to get in the kitchen with them and show them what's up.
Yeah, and it's critical to know how to cook, right?
Yeah, it's critical.
You don't need to go out and, you know, because when you're craving, you could just whip something up, and you could, you know, exchange ingredients, you know, alternative to, you know, whatever food that are. I always say just no grains, no potatoes, and no starch. It starts there. As long, no processed foods and no sugar. Other two items. What is the most significant barrier that patients face when trying to use food as medicine, and how does it help them overcome these challenges? What can help them?
You know, like I said, the barriers are different. They're really different for everybody. You know, getting access to the food and bringing in, you know, getting that environment set up straight, like the home environment, that's probably most critical, right? Whether or not that's ends up being the biggest barrier, but setting up your kitchen in a way for success. You know, if you have somebody in your house who's not supportive of you, that is the ultimate barrier. So, you know, what can we do about that? A lot of times when people tell me those kind of things, I'm like, well, you know, tell them to hide the food, tell them to put it somewhere else, tell them that it's medically necessary for you to like be away from these. Get them on your side or get them out of your life if they're not really helping you. You know, we talk real change talk, and sometimes getting people to want to change is a barrier. You know, sometimes people want a really quick fix. And they can't fathom that, you know, a gummy that they're eating at night is the reason why they're not experiencing weight loss, because it's like a tiny little dinky thing, or like that 1 glass or 2 glasses of alcohol. And you know, it can be really hard coming from a culture of moderation to sometimes realizing like moderation, that's kind of not the right word to be using in this situation, because that looks so different for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, moderation, that's it's a sticky subject, right?
Sticky subject. It's really, it's a gray zone. I stay away from gray. I try to stay away from that.
Yeah, and I'm also a believer of elimination. Start with just, you know, eating simple, and then add back in one food item at a time, and then so that you can figure out what type of foods you're sensitive to, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. And this is amazing. This interview has been such a fun interview for me. Your approach to nutrition is so different from, you know, many traditional approaches, you know, to health care in general, right? This is not standard care that we're talking about.
Right.
This is very grassroots. And we've seen a lot of, you talked about, type 2 diabetes in your training, right? You talked about, you were told that type 2 diabetes is, irreversible. And we've seen so many times that that's not true, right? I've talked to a lot of people on the show that has reversed their diabetes, their type 2 diabetes, that, getting off insulin and getting off medications. And this is really nothing short of a miracle what's going on. And I really commend you for standing up and not being just wanting to be your dedication in wanting to be different because of your personal journey, and applying what you've learned after the fact that you've done your medical school, your residency, master's in nutrition. You haven't stopped learning, and that is such a great it's a great news for people, because if I had somebody like you in my corner back in the day, I'm like, I could have been, healing quicker than I've done. But I am glad that you've stumbled upon this. I've stumbled upon this. And to anyone listening on the show, this is a, validation for you, right? That this is the right way of going about how to use food as medicine.
Yeah.
Doctor, can you provide any of our our listeners here, how to incorporate a more nutrient-dense whole foods into the diet? Well, give us a couple of, your favorite meals that you cook, because a lot of times we are overwhelmed with cooking, but they don't realize that sometimes you just make it simple, right? You make it more sustainable. So how do you teach your patients on how to start their journey in food?
So, keeping it simple really is the key. Finding a couple of foods that you really like, and, people say that they get sick of eating the same foods over, but they don't realize your entire life you were eating cereal every single day for breakfast. Like you've been eating the same food over and over. So, I have a whole little spiel that I give, my ABCs of essential eating. And, you know, avoiding ultra-processed foods is the first one. A is avoiding ultra-processed foods. And so a quick way to think about that is the 200-year rule. Did this food exist 200 years ago? If it did, it's probably okay. If it didn't, put it back. And so people are like, well, bread existed 200 years ago. And I'm like, well, bread didn't have all the stuff that's in it right now. 200 years ago. So that's that. A, avoid those things. B, build your meals with high quality protein. And high quality protein is meat, fish, eggs. So pick something from this first. Pick something from this. And, you know, I try to give people estimates of how much they should eat at a time. And it's usually more than what they actually think or like, but explaining the importance behind that and eating those foods. So I say, start there. That's, you know, when I ask you what you had for breakfast, I don't want to hear, you know, spinach and cheese. I want to hear eggs with some spinach and cheese. I want the protein first. I want to hear, you know, when you tell me what you had for lunch, I don't want to hear a sandwich or a soup. I want to hear, you know, there was meat. You know, I had chicken with a side of lettuce, not a salad with some chicken on it. You know, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear because that's where the nutrients are. That's where the essential nutrients are. C is to consciously consume carbohydrates, because that's the first therapeutic target that we're going for, is adjusting the level of that. That is the prescription. How much of those should you eat? And to keep it really simple, you could just get above ground leafy vegetables to start. It's the simplest way to do it. And always, you know, looking at those vegetables, low sugar fruits, looking at them as a vehicle for fat, which comes to D, which is do include solid fats. And I specifically say that because people are very averse to that, because it's what we've been told we should be averse to. And so, you know, I try to give simple recipes for making dressings at home and salads at home. And, you know, even not even doing that, just say, like, you know, it's okay to have, you know, put olive oil or butter or any flavor that you like. Put it on the vegetables or put it on the side, put it on the protein. And so that's it. That's it in a nutshell. That's the A, B, C, and D. E is to eat salt with water, because you got to have the salt to stay hydrated. And then F is feasting and fasting. And so, you know, learning how to feast first, so that you can go longer periods of time without feeling like you need to feast, but understanding that the feast is just as important as the fast. And then, you know, down the line, getting into various fasting protocols and different strategies you could use with that. G is getting all the essentials. Basically, a lot of times looking at blood work for nutrient deficiencies or making sure you're getting enough things like magnesium. And so that's like the basic framework that I like to use to educate people, because as much as it's like a simple thing, it can be complicated, but it is really simple, right? So it could be heating up a burger and sauteing some mushrooms in butter on the side, and just making sure that you have enough of those foods to get your appetite under control. So for me, that looks like 2 burger patties with 2 eggs on top of it, and, you know, a couple pats of butter on those with some vegetables on the side, if I want the veggies.
That sounds delicious.
You know, that sounds delicious, but people, you know, they really gawk at that because that sounds like a lot of food. And, you know, but again, that's an adequate amount of food for the frequency of times I eat. So it's reframing. It's just, you know, so, yeah, it's very exciting teaching people how to eat, and it can be challenging, but it's definitely rewarding. And I'm always looking for new ways to help. You know, that's my barrier right now. Like, how can I be a better doctor? That means how can I help? How can I make this easier for you? And so I've got a couple things in the pipeline, and that's what I'm working on. Yeah.
Awesome. That is such an incredible. The ABCDs of
yeah, that's my ABC. So my for patients who come to see me, I host like a support group. I call it an empowerment group because I really want to empower people. And so I have PowerPoint lectures for all of my ABCs that just give more detail behind all of them, because that's really, it's my, like, the version of my plate or the food pyramid, trying to make essential eating as easy as ABC.
So, Dr. Christine, do you do any online consulting, or is it just in Connecticut right now?
Right now, it's just Connecticut because I'm only medically licensed in Connecticut.
Okay, so if anyone listening today from Connecticut, you can go
or
on
you can
to
come to Connecticut to come see me.
Yeah, absolutely. Food First, is it, what's the website again?
Foodfirstmd.com.
Foodfirstmd.com. If you want to
That's
check
it.
out Dr. Christine's work, foodfirstmd.com. And then your Instagram.
Is Doctor's Dish is my personal blog, and then Food First has a foodfirst.md Instagram page.
Awesome. Dr. Christine, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us today. Such an amazing story, and your dedication to your craft is second to none, and it's just amazing to learn about your story from yourself today. And I am glad to have interviewed you on the show today, because there's a lot here and that we learned, and want to re-listen to this. To anyone, I hope you guys are taking notes, because food can be medicine if you want to, right? And
Absolutely.
we talked about the ABCs of food, get rid of that processed food. Plus,
Avoid the junk.
avoid the junk. And amazing. You are doing such incredible work, Dr.
Thank
Christine. And we talked about, are you working on something else right now you want to plug in?
Sure, I could give a little plug to that. I am working with a psychiatrist, Dr. Lori Calabrese. She has launched a new program called Metabolic Psychiatry, with Food First MD coming on as the consulting metabolic medicine specialist. So we're very excited to be launching this program. We have a dietitian that is working with us, and a whole program to roll out that really includes, you talk about barriers, right? We're really trying to tear down the barriers with this program and we're testing things out. This is grassroots. This is new. We don't know what'll work, what won't work. We have some ideas from some other docs who have tried it out. And so, but never before, right? This is the only place that I am aware of that you come in for an evaluation. Metabolic psychiatry, if you look that up in the state of Connecticut, you're going to get right to our landing page. When you call for an appointment, you get to see Dr. Calabrese and get a psychiatric evaluation, and you get to see me for a metabolic evaluation, and then you get joint feedback from the both of us, and then you get to go speak with a dietitian, and you get oversight from all of us, all trying to help you figure it out. Because like I think I was talking to you offline about it, while I very much have been seeing, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, fatty liver, those are the diagnoses in my wheelhouse that I'm seeing and celebrating with people getting healthier, and things like anxiety and depression just happen to be, pleasant side effects that get better as well. To be working with a psychiatrist who is seeing, we are seeing bipolar, we are seeing, we're seeing people come and present for this type of treatment. And I'm very excited for the results to come through, because, like the mental health crisis in this country is not, it's just not, it's beyond alarming, right? That it's the children. It is the children who are now young adults who will be, it's just the age range it's very expansive, and so much of it is, a broken metabolism, but I also find nutrient deficiencies, like iron deficiency is, very rampant. And so there's so much to it, but it's the only place where you're going to get this type of evaluation. And so we're excited to bring this, especially with, Brain Energy having come out last year, really unifying this theory that, perhaps things like anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, ADHD, perhaps those are all connected and are all just suggestive of the brain starving for energy, starving for ketones, which is the best energy source. So we're trying to get more ketones in more people, and seeing how best we can do that.
And I'll do my best very best to spread the word for you guys. You guys
Thank
are doing
you.
such a great job, and you know, like I said, I believe in it, and I will do my best to push the message. And
Yeah, thank you for
kudos
having
to you
this
guys.
podcast and pushing the message. Like, yes, grassroots all the way.
It is exciting stuff for people. For Connecticut, you guys are so lucky.
Let's go, Connecticut.
All right, Doc, thank you so much for coming on once again, sharing your story here.
Thank you.
Good luck to you, and
Thanks.
love your work, and continue to do what you do because you're saving a lot of people's lives. Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.